there's a confidence paradox here because you'll never feel ready or worthy until you've got that accolade.
Hmm.
But then you can't get the accolade unless you are actually worthy. But you'll never be deemed worthy until you get the accolade. So there's a paradox there. And so I think people are low in confidence or self-esteem sometimes, and they second guess themselves, they doubt themselves. Like running a business is hard, it's draining, it's exhausting, and you constantly have to think like, am I good enough against all these other people in the world? Like, why should I take this space and hold this space? And I think if we think like that, we're never going to get anywhere. And so rather than kind of people pleasing and other people get that role, which by the way, they might not be more qualified than you or more experienced or better at it, they're just the one that's asked. And so why couldn't that just be you?
Hello and welcome to the Art of Value Whispering podcast. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, your business coach and value whisperer. And on this show, we discuss the smarter way to market your small business that just happens to be brilliant for introverts, because it's all about being more aligned, really understanding your true value, where that overlaps with your dream clients' needs, so you can have messaging, marketing, and a sales process that feels meaningful, adds value, and feels natural for you to deliver. Now, if you have a copy of my brand new book, Value Whispering, you may have noticed a quote at the top of the front cover by a duo called Andrew and Pete. They are the founders of Atomicon, and I'm delighted to introduce them to you today. If you already know who they are, then I know you're already excited for this episode. But if you don't, these are two of the most kind and generous people in the marketing and business growth industry. They started a small community many years ago, which has built into Atomicon, the most epicest small business marketing event in the UK and arguably Europe. I live in Switzerland and there are very few events. So I will be there at the event in the UK, Newcastle, in June. Go to the show notes to grab your link to go and get your ticket. And if you do go, be sure to come and find me there. But for years, I have just seen how different the feedback from their event is to any other business event. It really felt like a coming together of friends and supporters to grow their business together. Having been part of that community, I can tell you that's 100% what it feels like on the inside as well. Andrew and Pete are also famous for their cheeky ask, which, if you have read my first book, A Shy Girl's Guide to Networking, you may recognize, because it's all about giving value first. So one of the key ways to grow a small business is by collaborating with other business owners, borrowing other people's audiences. But how do you do that when you don't know the person, or they're already very established, well-known, and you're just starting out? Well, the cheeky ask is the answer to that. There are so many other golden nuggets in this episode. I can't wait to dive in. But very quickly, before we do, I just want to remind you, if you haven't got your copy of the book yet, but you would perhaps like a little preview first, if you go to melittacampbell.com/chapter, you can now download the first chapter of the book completely free. So you can get that preview, decide if that's the book for you. And if you have read the book, then do go to melittacampbell.com/win to enter my competition to win a one-day mastermind with me here in Switzerland. There are 5 places to be won, and everybody who enters will get a copy of my first book, A Shy Girl's Guide to Networking. Okay, let's go and meet Andrew and Pete. So hi, Andrew and Pete. It's great to have you with us on the show today.
Thank you so
Woohoo!
much for having us. Thank you everyone for listening as well.
Yeah, and thank
Hello,
you for
everybody.
changing your names, because we haven't got Andrew on the left and Pete on the right, so it's very confusing with the top and bottom.
Yes, and if you are listening on audio, this is the voice of Andrew.
Yes.
And this is the voice of Pete.
I don't know why I went lower then. I went like really
You
low
did.
as I said that.
This is the
Now I did put
voice.
that on for the rest of the episode.
Your Batman voice.
Yeah.
The dynamic duo. Brilliant. So for those who are listening that aren't already familiar with Andrew and Pete and Atomicon and your whole brand, could you give us a quick snapshot of your journey so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So we run the company Atomic. We're here for the small and mighty entrepreneur, the business owner that wants a great lifestyle, lots of money, and not the stress or the working hard of a corporate lifestyle. And basically, we're here to help people dream big and hit those dreams. We set up like almost 15 years ago, and me and Andrew met at university. One day we started a business together in between the second and third year of university, and we've been going ever since. We've actually never had a job. And there's your fun fact of the day. We never had a boss. And so essentially, we've been going ever since 15 years. We just set up fresh out of university. We had no support, no funding, no investors, like literally nothing, like no clients, no money. And we just got going day one with zero.
I don't actually know how we survived when like we look back at those early days. The business has definitely evolved over the years. Like when we started, we had a skill. So Pete was really good at graphic design. We taught ourselves how to build websites and we set up like a web design branding agency over the years. Like marketing was always our passion. So we started giving marketing advice for free to our clients who were getting websites and logos. That eventually morphed into more of a marketing consultancy, marketing agency. We then launched the membership in 2014. So Atomic is 11 years old now as a standalone brand. That was all around bringing small businesses together. And then the business eventually morphed away from the personal brand of just Andrew and Pete to Atomic, which is its community, its conferences, its coaching programs to help businesses scale.
Yeah, and I'm going to come back to that point about community because that's one thing that I was just saying before you came on that I've just been so impressed with Atomic as well. So I'm quite curious to know how you created that, but how you've managed that as well. As you said, you've really evolved. So in the early days, you did some events, but they were quite small business, like meetups locally.
Yeah.
Mm.
How did you get from, obviously there's been time between, it wasn't in one big leap, but was that always your intention to create this huge, like one of Europe's biggest marketing conferences, or did it just evolve and become a bit of a happy accident?
It was kind of a happy accident. Me and Pete started going to conferences in 2014, 2015. So right after we launched Atomic, we did like 3 years of running a very, what you would call a local business. So going to local networking events, like doing logos for like local pat testers, that kind of thing. And as we started going to bigger conferences, we just got out of our bubble. So we flew to the States, we flew to Europe, we started getting out of like the comfortable circles that we were in, and our eyes were just open to like the possibility of A, how people are marketing the businesses online, but like B, how like many more clients there are out there. And we just absolutely loved conferences. We were going to maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 different conferences per year,
Mm.
growing Atomic off the back of it. But then, and we had our own like mini local networking event, which we stopped, started growing the online side of the business. And then Atomicon, it came from the community. And I feel like that is been one of the reasons why Atomicon has been successful. It wasn't something we had it in mind to do in the future, but we waited until we felt like the demand was there for it. So we would do back then an annual survey to all of our members. And one year, this must have been 2017, actually, the end of 2017, going into 2018, 25% of members, unprompted, said that they wanted a conference. So we set up Atomicon, put Atomicon on sale. We were very nervous. Like we thought like this was going to bankrupt us if it like didn't go well. So like we did it on like such a tight budget, didn't we, Pete?
Oh yeah, we basically thought this will be a small local event. Some people might travel, but small local event. We got the cheapest venue, and we asked our friends to just come and speak for free. Now, fortunately, at that point, like we had some friends that were like really awesome speakers, so we kind of pulled all in the favors there, and we looked at the cash flow and we were like for this to be a success, we need to get at least 80 people there. So we made a list of 80 potential people that we thought would come to the event. And we literally wrote them all, name for name, who we thought. And then we put on a wait list, and we had like maybe 150 people on the wait list that registered for the wait list. And we got excited. We're like, ooh, maybe we'll get more than 80. But we're still really nervous. And then we did a big flash sale, and we did like 80% off, like buy your ticket now. And it was like £89, I think, for the first round, 80% off. And the first day, we sold 80 tickets. And within the week, within the 5 days, we'd sold over 300 tickets.
Wow.
And then 350, we had to stop the ticket sales coming in. So all of a sudden, we were like, oh my God. And here's the funny thing. We suddenly realized what it meant to have an offer that people wanted. And this is weird, but as marketers and salespeople and business people, I don't think we realized how good we were at what we did until that moment. Because you could be the best marketer in the world and have a crap offering. You would lose all confidence because you didn't think you'd be very good at selling it because no one wanted it. When it's not actually the marketing, it's the offering's fault.
Mm-hmm.
When we did Atomicon, it opened our eyes dramatically to what's possible when you have a good offering. So anyone listening now, if you put your offer in front of someone to the ideal person and they're not thinking, oh my God, that's amazing, I want to buy that now, then you really need to think, like, is that offering good enough yet? What could make it better? And after that moment where we sold 300 tickets, we'd never sold 300 of anything at that point. So to have that moment was huge for us. We knew we'd hit on something. We call that a reaction spike. So that made us challenge and look at everything else that we had on offer, which is maybe a story for another day. But that is like our now guiding light of, is the offering hitting the right mark?
Do you know what else it was though, Pete? It wasn't just is the offer right? We were really good at it. So like we had been to so many conferences, we had been speakers at conferences, we had been attendees at conferences, we had been keynote speakers, we had been breakout speakers, we'd been attendees when we were making money, attendees when we weren't making money. Like we like knew every part of the conference model. So like we were very good at putting on that event. Like we knew what was going to make it good and we really enjoyed it. Like it kind of surprised us how much we enjoyed putting on a conference like Atomicon. So I feel like it's that like perfect Venn diagram, something people want that you're good at and that you enjoy. And it just kind of grew from there. So it was
Yeah.
kind of a happy accident, but also I think very intentional.
Yeah, there's that quote,
When you
isn't it?
have something that you feel confident in as well, that's another huge thing, just to add on. Like if you feel really confident that this is going to be awesome, that confidence is then transferred onto the potential client.
Hmm.
And so I think confidence is really key as well. And then basically like we've capitalized on that. And now we're at about 1,500, 1,600 attendees expected for the next one. So yeah, it's grown a lot since the 300, but we live every second of it. It's like the most fun thing that we do, and we love it, and we know it's good. Like we know it's like the best thing ever.
Yeah, it really is the best thing ever. It's so good. And
Thank you.
and I think, there's that quote, success happens when opportunity meets preparation. And it sounds like, okay, you
Yeah.
did all the prep, you did all the groundwork. Plus,
Mhm.
I often think, when you just have that idea that just won't go away, it's there in the back of your mind. "Yeah, I really feel this could work. And then, as you say, with that, it people buy when they have the know, like, and trust, but also the belief. But I think that belief has to come from you first as well. So, as you say, that confidence, it all needs to come together as a package. And thank you also, Pete, for highlighting how important it is to have a clear offer that people want, because I'm always amazed at how often the offer is sometimes completely missing, particularly when people have a service like coaching. They don't have a clear offer. They have a chat with someone. Oh yeah, I can help. What's the offer? And they don't have a
Mhm.
yeah, I think productizing a service is really a helpful way to think about it, because then you've got a clear thing you're selling, and Yeah, it sounds just the most obvious thing in the world, but so many people
It's
miss
it's
that.
it's honestly so true. And I know you help people with this, Melitta, and like people need your help on that, like 100%. And like you said, we speak to so many people and they're either charging by the hour or they don't have clear offerings or everything's bespoke. When people work with us, we quickly move them to productizing the services and their offerings, whether they're B2B, B2C, like product based, like whatever it is, like productizing it because it means that you can be proactive with selling it. It means you can be paid the right amount for the amount of time that goes into it, and you can measure that. It means that you can manage your cash flow better. It means you can automate parts of it, like systematize it, outsource, delegate it. You can't do all that if it's bespoke, or you can, but it's not as easy.
Yeah.
So
And like you said,
it's,
you can get really good at it. You know, if you're doing different things all the while, you never
yes,
give yourself that chance to get really good at that
yeah,
one thing that makes you stand out and helps you create amazing value.
amen to that.
Yes.
So at this year's Atomicon, you were talking about the cheeky ask, which I love because, as I've said on the podcast several times, one of the reasons I do this is to help me to stay out there being bold, because that's one of my things is I quickly become shy if I'm not continually putting myself out there and taking action to be more confident. And so this cheeky ask really landed with me. And based on that, then, well, actually, the book festival we had came from that idea because I was like, oh, maybe I could ask the people who've written these amazing books I love, and they all said yes. It's like, oh, it works. How much of the cheeky ask has been behind growing Atomicon?
So much of it. So it's not just like Atomicon, like the big cheeky asks
Everything.
is ingrained fully in our business. And it almost has been since like day one. So when we set up, we were 21, fresh out of uni, naive as hell. Like nothing was holding us back. Like we didn't feel fear, that we feel today when we do things. And I think from that, we just asked for stuff. So if we wanted something, we asked for it. And like the answer was yes or no. And when we first went to our first big conference, this is like how all of this stemmed. And because we were doing it, I think, without even realizing we were doing it. But then when we went to the first big conference, it was in the States. It was going to cost us thousands and thousands, but they had some of the best speakers from all around the world that all had audiences. And there we were, a small business. And we were like, we need to make the most of this. We need to get a return. So what we did is we researched the lineup. There was like 100 speakers. We picked 20 that we wanted to meet. We created bespoke landing pages to invite them for a coffee. So John Lee Dumas, who I know was on your podcast a few episodes ago, he was one of the people that we wanted to meet. Like he had a really big podcast, really big audience. So we invited him for a coffee. He said yes. At that coffee, we said, "Hey John," because we didn't think we could just ask, like, "Hey, let's be on your podcast." At this point, just because you've taken us for coffee, like it doesn't work like that. But we thought, like, what can we leverage here to get him to say yes to us, or at least start building that relationship with him? So at that coffee meeting, we said, "Hey, John, how about this? We take some of your podcasts, some of your courses that you've got. We were really good at graphic design, remember? We'll turn them into bespoke PDFs that you can use as lead magnets. All we want to do in return is have our little link at the end of the lead magnet to say this was made from Atomic and put that lead magnet on our site so we can say John Lee Dumas's advice is within Atomic. Very easy, yes. Because he enjoyed that process, he then invited us onto his podcast. Because we got on that podcast, we then got on other podcasts. We then got in front of the people that ran the conference. We then got to speak at that conference. We then built more relationships off the back of that. A few years down the line, we got to keynote that conference. And like if we trace it all back, it's because we went to that conference. We weren't just going to be shy and just like poke our heads in the networking rooms. Like we were going to go intentionally, ask big. The worst that they could say was no. In fact, most people said no. We asked 20 people. I think we got like five yeses. And like we used those five yeses to leverage more relationships. So whenever we're thinking of anything that we can do, so whether it's growing Atomicon, whether it's getting speakers, We're always pushing ourselves to think bigger than what we currently feel like we're capable to do.
Yeah. So there's this idea of starting something before you feel you're ready.
Yeah.
But this feels like you were ready. You just weren't necessarily positioned or known to be ready yet. But
There's a confidence paradox here because you'll never feel ready or worthy until you've got the accolade.
mhm.
But then you can't get the accolade unless you are actually worthy, but you'll never be deemed worthy until you get the accolade. So there's a paradox there. And so I think people are low in confidence or self-esteem sometimes, and they second guess themselves, they doubt themselves. Like running a business is hard, it's draining, it's exhausting, and you constantly have to think like, am I good enough against all these other people in the world? Like, why should I take this space and hold this space? And I think if we think like that, we're never going to get anywhere. And so rather than kind of people pleasing and letting other people get that role, which by the way, they might not be more qualified than you or more experienced or better at it, they're just the one that's asked. And so why couldn't that just be you? And like Andrew said, like some of those big asks might not work out, but some of them will. And every single one of them you can leverage to get the next big ask. And we don't really see it as a one and said done thing. We see it as more of a what we call a leverage ladder. So the asking John Lee Dumas to do the graphic design enabled us to get on the podcast for more podcasts, to get on events. Like it enabled us to, with that relationship, do online conferences. We used like John Lee Dumas's name to like get other big names, and then that created another leverage ladder to get more other big names, and everything just spirals. That we go to speak at the event, keynote the event. It's a ladder. So you need to think about what you have now and go as big as you can, take the biggest step you can on that ladder, and then use that to propel yourself to the next step and the next step faster. And just ask as big as you possibly can. The key to this is two things. Like number one, you have to ask for what you want. And number two, you have to build the relationship first or ask with some kind of leverage. Okay, so if you don't have like any leverage at all, you need to build the relationship somehow. Like we offered John a coffee, and then we offered him like a beautifully designed bespoke lead magnet that will help him grow his audience, and he has to do zero work to get that. This is all just giving value to that person because we didn't really have much to offer. And if you feel like that, if you don't feel like you've got much to offer, then you have to get a little bit creative with what you do have and also try to build that relationship first. Another one of our speakers at Atomicon, they built a relationship with someone on Robin Waite. He built a relationship with someone in Ali Abdul's team, and he managed that and fostered that relationship and then put his name forward for Ali's podcast. The podcast was like, okay, it's touch and go, like it's a big podcast, but he was like, look, I'll come in last minute. If you have any dropouts, I'll just fly in last minute and I'll be there to save the day, right? And that happened. He got on the podcast and he generated like an extra few thousand leads and over £250, £250,000 worth of business from that one podcast. So he's got in there. And although he might not have felt like he had much to offer in that moment, like he built the relationship first. So can you see, like anyone listening, I urge you to ask for what you want and use what you can to ask as big as possible. And if that doesn't work out, like ask one rung below and then keep going. The idea of starting small and building up is a complete fallacy. It never works because it just positions you at that stage. And it takes so long for you to build up that you never actually build up. You just stay at that kind of start small area. So
Yeah.
you got to think big, ask big, and go for it.
Yeah, because if you stay small, you just run out of resources. Then you stop.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But what I love that you did there, I think I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've had people have a cheeky ask to me, but it's just like all about them. This
Yeah.
is what I
Yes.
want And then they've been a bit relentless about that as well. I think that's not a cheeky ask, that's just a rude ask. So I love that
Yes.
you've really led with value. What can I do to build this relationship, add the value, put
Mm.
that sort of, in PR terms, we used to call it like putting goodwill in the bank before you ask to take anything away.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that sort of, we heard from Bob Berg as well, talking about the go-giver. Give first, build that relationship, help them get to know you, and then you can see, well, where can we take this? And what I love as well is that you didn't just get the yes and say, yeah, job done, good, pat on the back. Like, well, where does this take us now? Look, what's that next opportunity?
Mm.
And kept going with that, that follow up. They always say the fortune is in the follow up, but you don't necessarily think about that in terms of the opportunities you get with your marketing as well. So, yeah, thank you
There's
for.
a slight nuance to this, is it's not just about what you can give them. It's about like what they actually want, right?
Yeah,
So
this is
like
really important.
if John didn't want to grow his email list or he didn't want another lead magnet, like chances are he would have said no to that request because it's just like time consuming, you know? I think a lot of people approach it from a this is what I can give you, but they still are missing the point of like what we actually want, you know? Like for example, with Atomicon, we get inundated with pitches constantly. And we are like very clear on our website of like the topics we're looking for, the things that we're looking for. But without fail, I would say maybe a third of the pitches that we get are completely unrelated to like what we're actually asking for. You know, it's a sales and marketing event, like at its core. So we may have like one or two topics that aren't necessarily sales and marketing, but the rest are sales and marketing. And yet we'll get like pitches after pitches after pitches of people saying, I know it's a sales and marketing event, but I think this would be really good for you. And it's like you're starting off on just like the wrong foot from the get-go. Like go and find. I think sometimes we get fixated as well on like what is that big domino? Like that's the one I need to go knock over. Like there's other ones, or maybe you need to think of like a rung up, not even a rung down, you know? Like if you really want this rung here, how do you go even one above so that you become irresistible to that rung?
Yeah, and Richard Branson, that's how he got started with Virgin because he wanted TVs in the seats, but they wouldn't fund it. He couldn't get anything from the bank. So he said, okay, well, if you won't fund me to do this on 3 planes, what about 10 planes? And they're like, okay. So they wouldn't give him a million, but they gave him like 1 billion instead. It was something crazy like that. And
Yeah.
they're like, sure, like crazy. But yeah, sometimes I say going even bigger then makes everything else simpler.
Yes. Yeah,
But and one conversation we've had a lot is about, value whispering is about resonating deeper. It's not necessarily about shouting louder or doing more. And I think that's where this cheeky ask comes in. You really need to make sure that what you're offering resonates with that right person. It's not just the value, but seeing that in the context of
yeah,
your client or the person you're pitching to or
exactly.
the situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that point of resonating, you've talked about insanely shareable content. Tell us a little bit about that because I know so many people now was it Gary Vee was saying every business is going to be a media business in the future. So we need to create content that's really landing with our ideal clients and gets us to where we're going to be and starts building that up, that position. Is there a secret to doing that from your perspective?
We share in our book, Content Mavericks, how we go about creating content, and there's like 5 key areas to make it more shareable. But I think just like one step before that is just the mindset around content. And I think people just quite simply aren't putting in the effort usually.
Mhm.
And that's because few things, and it's not their fault. But number one, content takes a long time to create and it takes a long time to pay off. So if you're thinking, I'm going to create some videos and I'm going to do like a video a day every day, and after a month, you're like, I've got no results. It's very easy to give up and it's very easy to just cut it down. But the people that we've seen grow the fastest, let's say someone that's done really well on Instagram, to do that, they were consistent every single day posting a video that's actually really, really, really good. And it's getting better and better and better. And most of those videos, 99% of them, flop. But one or two of them, for whatever reason, hit it off. They go like semi-viral. And then because that person likes that video, they then go check out your profile. Oh, this person's consistent. They make all these amazing videos. I'm going to follow them. It's an easy follow. And that's the story that we've seen happen with everyone. It's the people that are creating amazingly good content consistently for a long time suddenly make it. Like it just explodes at one point and then maybe again later and again. But it's because of the consistent work. And I think most people just don't create good enough content, which sounds really harsh, but the level of the standards now for content are so high. What is considered like mediocre content now used to be like amazing content like 5 years ago, which basically just makes it harder and harder for people. And thus people, they get disheartened when they're trying and it's not their fault. And what we see is like if you're running a small business, right, you need to create all this content, but you also need to do business development. You need to have meetings, you need to do admin, you need to do finance, you need to do the actual work that you promise your clients. When do you actually have time to create content? Like a lot of people have maybe like an hour a day, or they'll block off like half a day a week. It's actually not enough time to do something epic enough to like actually break through the noise.
On
That's
that as
why
well, though, is I think a lot of people will try to do too much. They'll be creating content in every single place in like the 90 minutes that they've given themselves a week, and then they're wondering why they're not getting results. Like we once did this whole keynote around the 90-10 rule, which basically made the case of spend 90% of your efforts doing one thing remarkably well, 10% like faffing on with everything else. So, like, as small business owners, I think we're often comparing ourselves to these huge content creators who have now got teams who are now making money from the content. They've got a lot more resources. When in fact, like, they didn't start as that. Someone like Joe Wicks, who's built like a massive personal brand off the back of his content, literally started just doing Instagram. He did Instagram videos every single day in his own brand that were humorous. And it took him, I think, over a year or more for it to actually take off, but he was relentless with it. And then, like, as it grows, you can process that. You can bring in teams, you can bring in editors, you can then go onto more platforms. You've built a platform on Instagram, so you can like send them all over to your YouTube. Like repurposing content, I think, is sometimes extremely overrated. Marketers will act like it's like the be all and end all. Like that's all you've got to do, like creative podcasts, and then that's your content strategy. When like in reality, like it's not like that. You need to create the best thing. And to do that, you need to spend time, as Pete was saying.
just one final thing on that. The how do I phrase this? If your content isn't getting a reaction, it's not working now and it won't ever work. So that's something really important because people go, if I'm just consistent enough, it will one day take off. That's not true. It needs to consistently get better and then one day it'll take off. But you need to hit what we call a reaction spike with that content. And if you haven't got a reaction, the video or the content, whatever it is, it's not at the point where it's good enough yet. So it needs to be changed. By the way, good enough doesn't mean extra time always. Sometimes it just means a more unique angle or a better framework for the content. But that's just like my golden rule. If it doesn't get a reaction, it's never going to get a reaction, even if you're consistent. Like the content needs to get better, it needs to change.
Yeah, like you're saying, repurposing is great, but if you're repurposing stuff that wasn't good in the first place, then it's not going to help.
It's
Exactly.
actually detrimental, I think. It's detrimental in some respects.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier, right at the very beginning, that if you want a business that's enjoyable to manage, then you really need process. within that. Do you think the process is a key part of this, or is it more about finding your voice and finding that really unique uh, angle or that point of resonance, I guess, with your audience?
I think it's a mix of it all. I think process definitely is important. I think for us, especially, like we are very organized, we are very detailed. Like we know Wednesday is our content creation day. So like we're going into it with that head on. We know all the points. I think if you want to be creative, you need to remove a lot of the questions that you ask yourself. So if you can create a process so it almost becomes like second nature, you don't need to think about, oh my God, what am I creating today? What are the steps I need to do this in? I think that often allows for creativity rather than detracts from creativity. Um, I do think though, like finding your voice, even though that sounds a little bit cheesy, like finding a way in the book, Content Mavericks, we call it the content stamp. Like, what is your content known for? You should listen to Melitta's podcast because it does XYZ. Or you should go to Atomicon because it's like this compared to the other events. Like for anything, like you need your unique identifier so people can pass it on.
So it's a case of initially experiment as much as possible. And then once you've hit something, process it, make more of it, put more effort, investment, budget, team, resources into it to maximize it. But you need that initial experimentation to constantly find what it is that is going to create the reaction spike and the content stamp.
Yeah, and I often hear people say, "Oh, I'm just no good at marketing," or "I'm no good at this," and that I don't think that's can ever be true because, as you just said, it's all an experiment. So you're just playing around at first, have fun with it, see where your marketing goes, and see what you enjoy, what you're good at, and what gets that response. We
Mm.
have another Venn diagram.
Yes.
And then everybody can be great at some form of marketing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to be what everyone else is doing. And that's one thing that I love doing with my clients is finding that sweet spot between what they really enjoy and what resonates and has that impact in the marketplace. But as you say, it's all experimentation, and you'll find something that works brilliantly, and then suddenly it doesn't. So that experimentation has to continue as well. But
Yeah.
in terms of starting with that great content, other than experimenting, is there any other things that people can use as a start point to, or a way of maybe benchmarking what great looks like?
I think it goes back to that reaction spike that Pete was talking about earlier. Like, I don't think you're gonna come out swinging from the gates and nail it on your first go. What you want is you don't want radio silence. Like, if you're getting radio silence, then you're doing something wrong, basically. Like if you do three posts in a row, you get no comments, no likes. Something needs to change. You need to try to think about, I think, putting yourself in the audience's shoes. I think being very clear with who you're trying to reach. What would they, what, when I'm creating content now, it's like, what is going to make someone react to this in some way? I need to almost picture the comment that they're going to leave. Like, if I look at a post, some content people create, it's like impossible. It's just impossible to actually engage with it. Like they'll ask either too big a question or the question's not like interesting enough. So I'm like literally once I've finished, I'll look at the content and I'll be like, if I was somebody coming across this, what would they say? Like how could they comment on this? And if I can't think of anything, then it probably needs to change. And I think the more you do it, I feel like that just becomes almost muscle memory. And you create the content with that in mind. It's not like I'm sitting down and like looking at the screen and thinking, what would they say? But like I think in the beginning you need to force yourself to do that.
Yeah, I love that way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You have both shared so much value and insight, but do you feel there's anything that we haven't touched on that might be helpful for the audience to know when they start building their mighty atomic business?
If you want to create a community, and I think like that is ultimately what we've built here, Atomic is a community. And the difference between a community and an audience is that an audience is where everyone knows you, a community is where everyone knows each other. And like we are much more fans of communities because marketing becomes easier when you can create some hype, some excitement, some camaraderie within that community. So we were very purposeful from day one of Atomic to make sure this wasn't just like the Andrew and Pete show. This was how do our Atomic members know each other and being very intentional about that. So whether that's hosting, we'd host table discussions where people can host little informal chats on whatever topics they're interested in. We literally have a matchmaker at Atomicon that you can fill out a form and people will match you up. We've got an app which gamifies like how many people you can connect with. Like we have been very intentional about connecting people together. So Atomic feels bigger than us, and it's not just an audience, it's a community.
I would say if I had to also answer the question, and Andrew obviously took like the best one, I would say something around like sales and pricing and things like that. So like our philosophy is to just never stop selling. I think a lot of small businesses get stuck in this kind of what we call the entrepreneur's catch-22, where it's you hit capacity with your work, and so therefore your marketing stops because you're busy with client work. And then what inevitably happens is that client work comes to an end. So then you have to scramble around to do marketing again. But like you've not built the audience in that time, you've not built demand, so you can't raise your prices, you can't easily onboard someone quickly. And so you're scrambling around to get someone, and then you hit the capacity again, and you go like, it just goes up and down and up and down, rather than a continuous growth. And if you want continuous growth, you need to continuously grow your audience, market, and sell. And I think a lot of people just stop when they get busy. And I think the underlying symptom of that is that the offering is typically either underpriced or not scalable enough, or it's not what people want. So it's like if you have an offering that's scalable, doesn't rely on you, it's priced well, and people want it, like you can't go wrong. So people will buy, you make more money, you can reinvest that into growing your audience, and that will help you get more people, and it just goes in an upward spiral.
Yeah. I think sometimes people kind of overcomplicate a little bit when, as you say, you just need the basics in place, and to keep doing those basics well, consistently making those offers, and it comes together, but it can take time as well.
Yeah, it can take time. I do think people give up far too quickly. I think it's a balance between, like I said before, not just keep on doing the same thing with no reaction and expecting to someday get better results,
Yeah.
but being persistent enough with improving.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you both so much for your time. If people want to know more about Atomic and Atomicon and being part of that community that you've created, which is, as I said right at the beginning, just incredible to be part of. And again, one reason why people do drop off is because this isn't just a difficult journey, it can be really lonely. So being part of an amazing community is so important. But where's the best place for them to go and find you?
Yes, so if you want to kind of come check us out, join our community, like we'd love to have you there. We'd love to get to know you all. So you can head over to atomic.site, and then you can find out all about our community, our event, our coaching programs, and so forth. Or you can follow us at Andrew and Pete as well on Instagram, or you can check out our YouTube channel, Andrew and Pete TV. And you can check out our podcast there as well. It's called Don't Work Harder. And yeah, we'd love to have you part of the community.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much for having us,
Thanks,
Melitta. Thank you, everyone,
Melitta.
for listening.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed.
Bye.
I hope you found this episode helpful. And I don't know about you, but I really love Andrew and Pete's take on the cheeky ask, seeing it not as a pushy pitch, but as a way of building genuine relationships by leading with value and being thoughtful about what the other person actually wants. I get cheeky asks all the time, and no one ever thinks about what I actually need. This is such a rare thing. It makes it a big missed opportunity that you can take advantage of. And why not today? Who would you give a cheeky ask to? I also love their leverage ladder idea, this big domino effect, and a reminder that just one brave ask can open a door that will leave all those smaller dominoes tumbling and really help you take your business to the next level. And of course, that point about content was such a good reality check. If your content is getting radio silence, it's not necessarily a sign to quit, but a sign to start experimenting. And you've heard me talking about this before, how marketing is just one big experiment. Enjoy that. See what works, tweak, improve, and keep going until you get that reaction spike. And if you would love more of this, then do come and join Andrew, Pete, and myself, of course, at Atomicon this year in June. I'll put the link to get your ticket, and the tickets right now are discounted. So go and grab it before the price goes up. And as I mentioned in the introduction, if you haven't yet got your copy of my book, Value Whispering, there are two ways to go. You can go to valuewhisperingbook.com. There you'll find all the links to get your own copy. Or if you want a preview, go to melittacampbell.com/chapter to get the first chapter free. And if you read the book, go to melittacampbell.com/win to enter my competition to win a business mastermind day with me here in Switzerland. And everybody who enters gets a copy of A Shy Girl's Guide to Networking. So lots for you to go and do right now. And all of it is going to help you take your business to the next level. But meantime, I'll be back here next Wednesday. I'll see you then.